Minister, on the Clarity Act, if you would please, on the Clarity Act.
Good to see you. Yes, I thought I gave a very clear answer on the Clarity. I gave just to be clear, because it is a question about a question. I mean, it's it's explicit in the question that it's not a binding referendum. This is what I expected, but as I said in French, that as Prime Minister on issues, particularly issues of a constitutional nature, I like to make sure I have the official advice before us, which is why yesterday I was careful in terms of my no, it is not. It is not for under a Clarity Act. It is absolutely not, and I would just recommend that you read the Clarity Act. It's very clear. Not surprisingly, the Clarity Act is very clear. A determination, and there's a series of conditions which I responded in the House for the record. Thank you.
Your concerns about Ebola, sir, in the World Cup?
So recently, Conservatives put forward a motion to restrict access to health benefits for failed asylum claimants to emergency life-saving care only. And that motion was defeated by the Liberal government. And a Liberal MP, as well as, frankly, pundits on political panels, said that that issue wasn't a problem, that there wasn't data to support that position. Well, the Parliamentary Budget Officer released a report this morning that shows, unfortunately, that Conservatives were right. So this morning, the Parliamentary Budget Officer released a fairly damning report on the Interim Federal Health Program's costs. And this is the program that was designed to be a program to provide temporary health benefits to legitimate refugees who are fleeing war zones. Over the last decade, under the Liberals' failed asylum policies and severely broken asylum system, the costs of that program have ballooned over 1,200%, but we have more data today on how that breaks down, particularly for failed asylum claimants. So nearly 74,000 failed asylum claimants are accessing coverage through this program, which provides benefits that Canadians don't have access to, like vision care, like physiotherapy. The Parliamentary Budget Officer also showed that the costs will continue to skyrocket. The Liberals have also said that, oh, no, this isn't a problem because we've got Bill C-12 and X, Y, and Z. But the reality is that many experts are saying that their half measures won't cut it, that they're not going to work, that Bill C-12 is going to be challenged in court. And the data that the Parliamentary Budget Officer put out today suggests that is right, because the backlog is continuing to grow. The amount of time that even bogus asylum claimants spend accessing these programs continues to increase, and the numbers are astronomical. I mean, like seeing this today, $822 million was spent in fiscal year 2024-2025. And you look at some of the services, counseling services have increased by 11%, costing taxpayers $38.7 million last year. And what the Parliamentary Budget Officer also said was that backlogs and slow processing add up to $72 million in extra annual costs for each month of delay. So, the Parliamentary Budget Officer today, I think provided data that validated the need for the motion that we passed, and today we are re-upping calls for the Liberals to support our motion, which they voted against. I want to thank my colleague Dan Mazier, who is our Shadow Minister for Health, for pushing this motion in the Health Committee. And Dan did this because of the impact on health wait times in Canada.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, you did a really good job there explaining the numbers. When I hear the numbers out loud again, I just can't really comprehend the impact this is having on our healthcare system. So there's no doubt that adding 74,000 rejected asylum claimants into our healthcare system is adding undue load onto our healthcare system, and it's taking away from capacity. It's taking away from capacity against regular Canadians that are in line for those services, that are just even in emergency rooms, or even to get physiotherapy or to get normal healthcare regulations. So, it's so unfair and so many different levels. And these claimants can get these services for years, not just a short time. as we referred to earlier. So I think that's the most, disappointing thing, and I think the Liberals have something really to account to for here and should be addressing. So now I'll turn it to Pierre.
Merci Dan, merci Michel, bonjour tout le monde. Donc il y a 3 mois exactement, nous étions ici les 3 pour parler de notre journée d'opposition qui voulait vraiment faire la lumière sur la question du programme de santé intérimaire fédéral qui donne des soins de service. On apprenait à ce moment-là on était à 1 milliard de frais dans l'année 2024-25 pour des frais des services de santé donnés à des demandeurs d'asile et surtout des demandeurs d'asile qui étaient déboutés, donc qui n'avaient même pas techniquement le droit de rester au pays. On avait mentionné dans notre motion, on s'entend, on continue à donner les soins de santé d'urgence, on va s'occuper d'eux, mais il reste que l'ensemble du programme était beaucoup trop large et ça n'avait aucun bon sens. Alors qu'il faut savoir qu'il y a 6 millions de Canadiens qui n'ont pas accès à un médecin actuellement. À ce moment-là, la motion a été présentée, débattue à la Chambre. Les libéraux ont voté contre. On avait même des libéraux sur des panels qui disaient qu'on était totalement ridicule, que ça n'avait pas de bon sens ce qui était dit. Aujourd'hui, on a un autre rapport de la directrice parlementaire du budget qui écrit clairement dans son rapport de 44 pages qu'effectivement, il y a un problème. Il y a le programme fédéral de soins de santé pour les réfugiés a coûté 822 millions de dollars en 2024-2025 et ça va continuer à augmenter parce qu'il faut comprendre qu'en plus de continuer à donner des services de santé de tout genre à ces gens-là, il y a 74 000 demandeurs d'asile qui sont vus refuser de devenir des réfugiés au Canada. Et ces personnes-là continuent d'avoir des services de soins de santé payés par les contribuables canadiens. Donc, nous, on demande au gouvernement de, premièrement, se rétracter, d'accepter le rapport et de voir qu'on avait raison il y a exactement 3 mois aujourd'hui. Mon collègue au comité de la santé vont déposer une motion. On va demander au comité de la santé d'aller plus loin là-dessus et de faire la lumière parce que là, avec les données de la directrice parlementaire du budget, c'est clair. Ce qu'on avait avancé il y a 3 mois était clair. Et donc maintenant, c'est au gouvernement d'être transparent et de dire quelles sont les prochaines étapes afin de régler ce problème. Merci.
Have you heard from Lena Diab? Is she going to appear on Thursday or still no news?
No news?
Okay.
And it's weird because the finance minister has committed to 4 hours. Look, everybody, I think, knows at this point that she's probably going to be shuffled, but this is such a critical accountability piece for Parliament. If she's so bad that they have to pull her or not let her come, then he needs to fire her and replace her with somebody who is competent. It's inexcusable that she couldn't be bothered to come for 4 hours.
Speaking of resignations, there's rumors that Steven Guilbeault might step down this week from Liberal caucus. Would that be good news or bad news for Conservatives?
I look at the track record of the Liberals, right? The Prime Minister, I assume you're talking about resource projects and whatnot. Mark Carney was the head of a banking alliance that wanted to keep Alberta oil in the ground. And a lot of I think the measures that he's taken to date have been, I would deem them as performative. For example, if he really wanted a pipeline, we would have had an interest, it would have been already designated in the national interest. Why do we have to wait 3 months? We have seen no repeal of bills like C-69, which have stymied investment in the energy sector. So I don't really, this is a Prime Minister who hasn't done anything material. Like, there's no proof that he wants to have these projects built out. So I don't really think it changes anything for one way or the other.
Monsieur Paul-Hus, en français, sur la possible démission de M. Guilbeault, qu'est-ce que ça enverrait comme message?
Bien, ce qu'on voit, c'est qu'il y a beaucoup de personnes qui voient M. Carney comme étant quelqu'un, un grand premier ministre. Mais ce qu'on voit actuellement, c'est beaucoup plus des problèmes de division à travers le pays. On a l'Alberta qui s'en vont sur un référendum cet automne. La montée de l'aspect référendaire s'en vient au Québec également. Et là, à même l'équipe libérale, on a 14-15 députés qui ont écrit au premier ministre parce qu'ils n'étaient pas satisfaits de ce qu'il faisait. Donc, M. Guilbeault est un élément parmi tous ces éléments-là qui démontrent que finalement, M. Carney gère d'une façon qui est plus divisive qu'unificatrice pour le pays.
Justement, sur la question du référendum albertain, est-ce que c'est légitime pour le gouvernement à ce point-ci d'évoquer qu'il va analyser la question référendaire sous la loi sur la clarté?
Bien, ce que j'attends de mon côté, puisque de l'équipe conservatrice, c'est d'avoir une analyse de la part du gouvernement, parce qu'on ne sait pas quelle est la position du gouvernement face à la loi sur la clarté. M. Carney a dit hier, je pense qu'il voudrait s'en servir, mais il reste qu'il y a beaucoup de points très techniques, constitutionnels dans cette loi-là, et qui datent de longtemps, là, qui n'a jamais servi. Donc, on a besoin d'avoir une réponse du gouvernement à savoir c'est quoi leur façon de voir la loi sur la clarté, mais il reste qu'on ne serait pas là aujourd'hui s'il n'y avait pas de division à travers le pays. C'est ce qui est beaucoup plus problématique pour nous. Hier, on demandait aux gens, au gouvernement aussi d'apaiser les Albertains, d'arrêter de créer un sentiment de rage à l'intérieur de la population albertaine et d'arrêter de créer une division à travers le pays. C'est ce qui fait en sorte qu'aujourd'hui, on parle de référendum, on ne devrait pas être là.
Le Bloc québécois s'oppose à la loi sur la clarté. Ils disent, écoutez, c'est aux Albertains à décider quelle est la question. Ottawa, pas d'affaire, pas son mot à dire là-dedans. Donc, est-ce que vous avez une position?
Bien, c'est pour ça qu'honnêtement, on a besoin d'une présentation. Le gouvernement devrait être clair là-dessus par rapport à la loi, parce qu'il y a des éléments de la loi qui font en sorte, est-ce que c'est applicable, par exemple, au référendum de cet automne, qui est un référendum pour savoir si on fait référendum? C'est très nébuleux. Il y a des aspects de la loi qui sont pas clairs du tout. L'histoire aussi de savoir est-ce que le résultat d'un référendum, c'est quoi la majorité claire, c'est pas clair non plus. Donc, c'est pour ça que cette loi-là, je pense qu'elle a besoin de dépoussiérage, une explication de la part du gouvernement pour savoir à quoi s'en tenir. Merci.
Liberals mixed messaging around a pipeline. Some haven't even read the MOU between Alberta and Ottawa. Some say they want a pipeline. Some say they're not sure. What does that signal to you?
Well, as I said earlier, if the Liberals were serious about building a pipeline, the announcement that the Prime Minister would have made recently is, this is in the national interest, I have designated it. And the day I receive this proposal from the Premier of Alberta, it will be permitted, right? That's what he should have said. But again, I referenced previous comments I made. The Prime Minister has long opposed further development of the energy sector in his policy decisions, in his writings, in his public appearances. He also has not signaled that he would repeal any of the bills which have chased away investment for upstream development, the oil that's needed to fill those pipelines. So, I think what the Prime Minister has done, and the reason why there's a lot of frustration, is that this has largely been performative. There's no action, right? And what I expect and what the Conservatives will continue to do in holding the government to account is to deliver on actions. Our party leader has been out, Pierre Paul-Hus, very clear on what those actions should be, and will continue to raise the issue in the House of Commons, in motions, and with every power that we have, because that developing Canada's natural resources, it doesn't just doesn't just benefit Alberta. It benefits the entire country, and it gives us energy security, and it benefits the world too. So Mr. Carney has to get his act together. He has to deliver, and he has to, I think, change his viewpoints, his long-held viewpoints on the energy sector as well.
Is it your understanding that the question that's being posed in Alberta is set, in other words, as it was announced on Thursday night, or is the wording of that thing up for negotiation, and do you think it's clear enough right now, because it seems to imply either a yes and no or no and yes answer?
Yeah, what I'm hearing from my community and what I've heard for the last decade under the Liberal government is they would like Parliament to focus on addressing the frustrations of Alberta, including the fact that we haven't had a pipeline built, that there's a lot of there's so many issues I could get into that are frustration, and that's where we're going to continue to press.
But just on the question itself, what do you understand? Is the wording set now, or is it up for
the
negotiation?
Most productive thing I could do right now in this moment is continue to advocate for the government to deliver on solutions to problems that they've created. Thank you.
Divides in your caucus? We're hearing about, some MPs that might have signed a letter about environmental concerns.
I think overall we're really united behind Prime Minister Carney's vision. It's a big tent, and there's a lot of people with different views, and I think that's one of the beautiful parts of being part of the Liberal Party. I was a Rachel Notley New Democrat before, and so, myself, I really appreciate the necessity of marrying together both the economy and the environment. And we're doing that in a modern way, and people express their views in ways that are productive and constructive, and I respect them for that.
Do you think those concerns are being heard? Are they publicly speaking about those concerns?
Well, I think some people have spoken publicly about, their own opinions, their constituents' opinions on a variety of subjects, including the environment. And at the end of the day, that's the role of a member of parliament, is to speak for their constituents. And there's lots of room to be able to do that within the Liberal Party and within Mark Carney's government. And I really respect him as a leader for, creating an environment where people feel safe to do their job as a member of parliament within the Liberal caucus.
And do you think he's going to take those changes into account, maybe change how he approaches the environmental policy of the government?
Well, I think that his environmental policy is extremely strategic. It's one that brings Alberta to the table. Without Alberta, we can't meet any environmental goals. And, since being in Notley's government, I've seen what's happened in that province around the environment since, 2018. And there's been a lot of change in that province with respect to investments. And so this brings investment back to the table because it brings its certainty back that Alberta is back when we're talking about climate, because we know that we have to marry together the economy and climate in order to be successful.
You're not worried about losing any caucus members over this?
I think each caucus member has to decide with their constituents what's best for themselves, and we've seen throughout the last year that a lot of folks have decided with their constituents that being with Mark Carney's government is the right thing for Canada and the right thing for their constituents. So, I'm optimistic that more folks will see that the Liberal Party and Mark Carney is the best way to represent their constituents.
Do you think more floor crossers are coming?
I mean, I have no idea what's in the hearts or minds of anyone, but what I can see is the same polling and data that you see, which shows that the vision Mark Carney has for the country is very popular, and I think that's resonating. I have to get to Central QP prep.
When you were in Premier Notley's cabinet, though, did you feel like environmental policies from Ottawa were costing investment in Alberta?
When I was in Notley's government, there was a very concerted effort to ensure that there was opportunity for investment, both in climate and in traditional modalities of energy. And there was a recognition, certainly, that there needs to be a partnership on both sides to move us into the future. And even traditional energy knows that this is the way of the future and the way for their products to be competitive on the market. And so there's a willingness and desire on both sides to ensure that we're doing more for the climate. Thank you.
Could you explain to Quebecers why Monsieur Guilbeault is so popular in Quebec and why that would be a great loss for the Liberals if Monsieur Guilbeault decides to quit?
Well,
she might as well, Ms. Gainey, but maybe I think you'll be more honest.
I'm not in his shoes, but we have to say that this guy stands for his principles, and maybe that's why he's so popular in Quebec. And obviously, Quebec has always been very progressive about the environmental questions. Sorry, my English.
No, English is perfect. It's
Thank
great.
you. So yeah, he stands for his principles. That's why he's popular in Quebec. I hope he's get a bright future.
Could the BQ win Laurier-Saint-Marie if there was an election?
That I don't know.
You're supposed to say yes. Of course, the BQ could win.
That I don't know. That I don't know. We'll see. But for the moment, I think Steven Guilbeault still MP.
You have a relative who used to be the MP for
Yeah.
Laurier-Saint-Marie, so I
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. Let's see.
Okay. Merci.
Est-ce que vous avez entendu ce qu'on dit à propos de M. Guilbeault, que ça se peut qu'il démissionne? Est-ce que vous avez entendu quelque chose, vous?
Bien, c'est sûr que ce gouvernement a choisi son camp, là, c'est l'abandon de la lutte climatique. C'est sûr que c'est intenable, non seulement pour M. Guilbeault, mais pour plusieurs libéraux. Nous, on continue à marteler, c'est des reculs par-dessus reculs. On ne voit rien de positif, c'est l'abandon de la cible de carboneutralité de la part de ce gouvernement-là. On va continuer à faire notre travail. Il y a un seul parti dans ce Parlement qui tient la ligne, qu'on peut développer l'économie en protégeant l'environnement, continuer à lutter contre les changements climatiques. Clairement, ce gouvernement n'a pas entendu. Il n'y a presque rien à sauver maintenant d'un point de vue climatique. Il a tout démantelé, ce gouvernement, ou presque. Il a tout donné aux pétrolières, à l'Alberta. C'est sûr qu'il y a beaucoup de gens chez les libéraux qui se posent des questions. On s'attend évidemment à ce qu'il y en ait d'autres qui se lèvent si M. Guilbeault emboîte le pas.
Est-ce que vous avez parlé à M. Guilbeault récemment, dans les dernières journées?
Bien, on communique évidemment parce qu'on est collègues ici, puis on a à cœur le dossier environnemental. Donc, c'est à lui à prendre sa décision, évidemment.
Alors, vous ne savez pas s'il va quitter?
Bien, ce sera à lui d'annoncer ce qu'il va faire. Moi,
Mais est-ce que vous le savez?
Je ne sais pas
non,
plus
vous
que
ne
lui.
savez pas. Mais est-ce que les autres personnes, peut-être, qui ont signé la lettre, est-ce que vous entendez des bisbilles s'il y en a qui veulent quitter eux autres aussi? Ou?
Moi, je sais qu'il y a un énorme malaise, non seulement chez la quinzaine de députés qui ont écrit cette lettre-là, mais chez plusieurs autres qui n'ont pas signé pour abandonner la lutte climatique, qui n'ont pas signé pour une trahison climatique et pour un emballement du climat et se lancer à fond la caisse dans le pétrole et abandonner toute responsabilité par rapport à une réalité qui ne disparaît pas avec les tarifs, qui ne disparaît pas avec la guerre en Iran. Les changements climatiques sont là, les gens sont préoccupés et ce gouvernement, ce qu'il propose, c'est l'accélération d'un modèle économique insoutenable et le Canada est en train de se tirer de l'arrière par rapport à ce qui se passe à l'international.
Y a-t-il moyen qu'on vous pose quelques questions en anglais?
Sure.
So, have you heard this was quite a strong rumor with sources that Mr. Guilbeault is going to leave? Have you heard that, and what do you think of that?
Well, we are aware of those rumors. It's his decision. After all, what we've seen from this government is a clear abandonment, completely drop climate change. It's not important anymore for this government. How can the Liberals stay within this government if they do have environmental values? That's a question. Apparently, Mr. Guilbeault is questioning himself, which is fair enough, but I believe many others are questioning themselves, and they should stand up and leave that party if they do believe the environment is important. Merci.
Merci beaucoup. Et dans les deux langues.
Hi. Premier Smith believes that the referendum question is not a matter for the Clarity Act. What do you think about that?
Well, I'm not an expert in the Clarity Act, but I am an expert in clarity, and the question is anything but. And I think it's something that Albertans are grappling with. It's something federal politicians are grappling with. And honestly, I think Albertans, they deserve a clear question. I'm not sure this meets that threshold, even if it doesn't, even if it's not a legal threshold that we're talking about.
Have you spoken with Steven Guilbeault recently? Do you expect him to potentially leave the Liberal caucus?
I mean, no, I've seen the same reporting you've seen. I don't know anything beyond that.
What does that signal if he does leave, though?
Nothing's happened to my knowledge yet, so.
But what would it signal? Would it signal that the government's losing certain regions of the country in favor of a pipeline?
No, I mean,
Alberta?
that's deeply hypothetical. I think this is a government that is focused on making sure the country works for all parts of the country. The strength of the Liberal Party has always been a balancing of interests, and I think we have with the Prime Minister a really strong climate plan. It's a plan that's designed to attract capital, to green the economy by building the next economy, and it's a plan that a lot of environmentalists, including myself, are very excited about.
So it doesn't signal anything that, you know, members of your caucus are considering leaving over the rollback of environmental policy?
It's tough to say that something that hasn't happened has signaled a thing.
You don't think he's considering it then? I don't understand.
You would have to ask him.
The Prime Minister has changed so many environmental policies over the last year. This new agreement on the industrial carbon tax is a much weaker carbon tax than what Justin Trudeau was proposing. I mean, how do you make the case in caucus that all these changes are worth it?
Well, I think you've got to keep in mind, for starters, that the effective price of carbon in Alberta was around $20. Like, it had gone way below the headline price. So we do tend to think about these things in terms of like that sticker price at the top, but the reality is carbon pricing was not seeing that, and it needed to be fixed. And so we have, with the MOU with Alberta, now floor pricing. We have carbon contracts for difference that'll push things up further. What we're doing is we're actually getting Alberta and the Government of Canada on the same page on climate and on carbon pricing and on building pipelines and on methane action and on all of these things that we need to get on the same page for to unlock green investment, to unlock conventional investment, to allow us to build the country that we want to build the country we need to build at this moment when we're looking to diversify away from the United States and strengthen our confederation overall.
How do you convince MPs in your caucus that are concerned that you're rolling back too many environmental policies?
Well, I haven't heard that very much, but I'll tell you, this is a robust conversation in the Liberal Party always. We're always discussing the various paths we have to get to our shared goal of net zero in 2050. It's a shared goal that the Prime Minister has reiterated. The Prime Minister has laid out a very capital-forward plan that sees us rebuilding the Canadian economy and rebuilding it in a way that we know we can do it now. You know, I think it's always very interesting because we're past the point where we don't have these technologies. We have these technologies. If we were all dropped into a field called Canada and 40 million of us were asked to build an economy again from scratch, we'd be the greenest, we'd be the most efficient, we'd be the most affordable. And so if we can get that kind of capital in, if we can turn over our economy, we are going to meet those goals, and we're going to do it in a way that puts tons of Canadians to work and really strengthens our position in the world.
The Prime Minister compared what's happening in Alberta to the Brexit movement. Do you agree with that?
I agree in the sense that it is a movement that has come out of nowhere, that nobody asked for, and it has wildfire risk. Like, it could just take off in various directions. This is not something that Albertans have talked about. You know, you really have to struggle to find regular polling on how Albertans think about separation. You'd see it intermittently, but I mean, like, once every 5 to 10 years, and you'd see it at about 20% my entire lifetime, support for separation. But what's different now is all of a sudden, without anybody having won an election, after changing the rules of how to get something forward now 3 times, we are going to a question in the polls based on the will of a loud online minority rather than the majority of Albertans who are strong patriots, who are strong Canadians, and are now being subjected to a conversation that's damaging to the social fabric of our country and the economy of our country.
What do you blame for that then, Smith?
Well, I don't blame the wind. I think the reality is political leaders in Alberta need to take account for the decisions they've made. But, you know, we can't dwell on that either. We now have a big conversation that we need to be present in, and Canadians need to pick up the flag, and they've got to fight for this country, and Albertans are proud Canadians.
En français?
No, sorry, I got to run.
Thank you for waiting in the sun.
What do you think of...
It's going to be a rough summer, horrible summer, because it's not only affecting Alberta, it's also affecting my province of Saskatchewan.
How so? What are you hearing?
They're meeting every week. They're going to Regina, Swift Current next week in our province. This is not good.
Are they coming from Alberta?
No, they're not.
So these are
We've got a group in Saskatchewan that have been meeting regularly the last 2 years, and now they have a little jump in their step because of what's happening next door.
Who do you blame?
Well, I'm not blaming anybody. I'll blame Trudeau. The last 10 years in our province has been horrific. Horrific. No increase at all in oil and gas, potash and uranium. We're just starting today to get our feet under.
We missed when you said it when you walked up. What do you think about separation in Alberta?
Well, we're going to have to deal with that. I mean, you've heard the Alberta people. They're not happy, you know. So we'll see what happens in October, but it's not good. And it's spilling over in my province. I mean, I want you to know this. This isn't an Alberta thing. This is also Saskatchewan, and we're seeing it, right, Fraser? I mean, he's standing right here. He's got meetings in Regina and Swift Current this week dealing with separation in our province.
What that means? Like, what's the aim of
Fraser, can you speak to us on that, sir?
Rather not. I'd rather stick to talking about the snowbirds, and we'll do that at a later time. Thanks a lot.
C-22?
Yes.
Yeah, so with Bill C-22, what the government has done, of course, is to bring amendments to Bill C-2 on the components around, components around the lawful access. While there's been some improvements to it, they also brought in a new component on the metadata component, which is deeply concerning. And I have now received letters from the Board of Trade. As an example, I have received letters from legal experts concerned around this issue and from many others. And so from the NDP's perspective, what's also super alarming is the fact that the government did not even consult the Privacy Commissioner with respect to the bill. And so if the government was so sure that they actually got the right balance with Bill C-22, why didn't they ensure that they have the input from the Privacy Commissioner to ensure that Canadians' privacy rights are actually protected? And so I just submitted, coming up to the office, a whole slew of amendments for Bill C-22, and we'll see what happens at committee with respect to that. If these amendments do not get passed, I don't think the government have struck the right balance, and I think they need to go back to the drawing board to make sure that they have the right balance in both addressing privacy and civil liberty rights, as well as providing the necessary tools for law enforcement agencies.
What kind of amendments?
Yeah, what specific?
I have like about 20 of them.
The main one,
well, you know, so I'll give you an example. For example, Signal is one of the systems that people use. I use it myself, by the way, particularly during the foreign interference inquiry issue that was underway. And so a lot of people use that. but the bill could potentially allow for a breach with a program like Signal, as an example. You know, the government says that there is no backdoor, and they justify that. What they need for the bill to enable is something that they should proceed with. However, you know, experts have already said that there is no such thing as a safeguard for government, right? Bad actors, malicious actors would be able to access that encryption and create that breach. So those are real concerns that I think needs to be addressed. You know, fundamental question. You know, before the bill receives royal consent, the government should ensure that they run this bill by the Privacy Commissioner, receive their input, and then take into consideration amendments to it.
The tech companies, you mentioned
Yeah.
Signal, there's others, Google,
Yep.
Apple, will be heard later on. Do you think they are to be trusted in their point of view when it comes to safeguarding privacy, human rights in general?
Well, I mean, part of the bill actually allows for retention of data, and then also calls for various telecommunication companies and beyond to create access to it in terms of the retention. That, I think, is also a safety risk for Canadians as well. So, you know, if the government is going to embark on that kind of process, you need to be sure that people's rights are protected. You need to be sure that these other malicious actors very potentially can breach the system is prevented. And I'm not sure if that it could be, to be honest with you. I don't know if it could be. And if you look at other jurisdictions where they have brought in different measures, it is actually very specific to investigations. And this is also not tied to investigations with Bill C-22.
What do you make of this unlikely alliance between, you know, civil liberties and privacy advocates, and on the same side are like the big tech companies for once? Yeah. What do you make of just what that says about what's going on here?
That the government doesn't have it right. I think the situation here is this. I understand that we need to modernize the laws in terms of lawful access in this digital age. I understand that. However, we also need to make sure that you strike the right balance. The government, in crafting Bill C-22, you know, is an iteration of Bill C-2. They address the concerns, some of the concerns under Bill C-2 related to lawful access. Then they brought in a whole brand new area that they did not properly consult people. So the fact that you have so many groups in categories of community groups that are concerned with the bill, that says the government hasn't done their homework. They need to get back to the drawing board and do their work properly to make sure that people are properly consulted and their input is evaluated, and they need to actually go to the independent officer, the Privacy Commissioner, and consult with them to ensure that Canadians' privacy is protected.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have concerns, or is that correct?
I don't know. You're probably asking the wrong guy, because this isn't an area that I hold a great deal of interest in. I mean, it's technically complicated. And unfortunately, I have to admit, I don't have the degree of comprehension of the issue to be able to give better answers to it. So, I mean, I too am working my way through it. I wasn't on public safety before. I'm on public safety now, so yeah, we're dealing with it.
From what you've heard so far, though, do you have any worries? You seem to raise concerns. If my memory serves me right, like that about messaging and that kind of stuff getting accessed and.
Yeah, well, I think it's a slippery slope, and there's certain things in certain places where the government has no place. So I was talking about like my 17-year-old kids, and they're texting back and forth in their emails and things like that. And if you're using this to kind of get access and your first kind of foot in the door with, because I know at the moment it's just like giving IP addresses and not about the actual content of it. But if you, first of all, you get the access and then the next step is the contents, and that's, I think, a slippery slope. And that's an area where the government should not be in your communications between 17-year-old friends. So, but I think part of the issue is we're all concerned about the slippery slope, but that doesn't mean that the slippery slope will happen, I think, and I can agree that there is a concern that it starts with this and it becomes more intrusive. I do not think the government has an interest in being intrusive in a lot of areas. So I'm not sure how much the concern is justified concern, but I understand the concern.
How are MPs feeling about the MOU in Alberta, about several environmental policies being walked back? What is the range of opinions you're hearing or feelings about it?
I don't want to speak for other people and other MPs. I do think Carney's has some pretty good credentials on being an environmentalist and being concerned about climate change, and I do have faith in him and him doing the right thing for the country, and I think that often involves balancing competing interests. And yes, we have environmental interests, but we also have interests in terms of stimulating our economy, diversifying our trade, and things like that. And I think, and ultimately, there's people like me and people in the caucus. We all have input. We all have the ability to say what we think. But ultimately, one person has the power to make that decision. It's the Prime Minister. And I personally have faith in his intelligence and the fact that he does care about these things.
There are questions around if Mr. Guilbeault will stay on or will leave the Liberals. What would that mean for your party?
I've heard that. I really want him to stay. I think he's a great guy. I think I'd rather have him in caucus saying what he thinks.
What would it mean for your party to be down another MP right now with such a slim majority?
I think the one person wouldn't change the majority status, but I think he would be missed. So I hope he stays.
Maybe one more question on lawful access. Just what is part of the issue that you're saying you're on the Public Safety Committee now and you don't fully understand all the complexities of the bill. Is part of the issue been that the government hasn't explained it well?
Well, I don't know. It's also the onus on the individual MP to spend the time to learn about this. But, in all the things we as a federal government are involved with, there's a lot of minutia. And here, in terms of computer, like my solution to computer problems is I like to take a hammer to the thing. I have no interest in the minutia of programming and things like that. And this is an area where you young people are far more understanding of these issues than old geezers like me. So, and is it a big area of interest? No, it isn't. So, but I don't think it's necessary the government. There's a responsibility on people to take the time to figure out the issues.
Okay, thank you.
Will the Clarity Act apply to what's before Albertans? The Prime Minister was just talking about that in there.
Yeah, as the Prime Minister's just indicated, we've had a chance to review the question and the applicability of the Clarity Act, and believe that it would not apply in the circumstances given the nature of the question.
So is 50+1 legitimate or not?
Right now, the Clarity Act has a series of different elements that you have to demonstrate, including that there is obviously a clear majority. That includes consideration of the proportion of the vote that's been cast. It includes as well the proportion of the population that's represented in the vote, as well as other factors that the House of Commons may determine as appropriate. Of course, when we're dealing with the House and not the government, that is something that would have to play out in real time. But as it stands now, given the lack of applicability of the Clarity Act to the question, we would not get to the assessment that you've just put to me.